President Nayib Bukele is the baddest man on the planet. And when I say bad, I really mean good. He's the president of El Salvador who took the most dangerous, the murder capital of the world, the most murderous country in the world, and turned it into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. He is that man, okay? He has done this crazy 180, this U-turn, this turnaround for his whole country. And we're going to see what he credits to how he did that, what he credits to this whole change and what's happening. But just so you know who we're dealing with when we're talking about, when we have this man's name in our mouth, El Salvador, murders fell 70% in 2023 as it cracked down on gangs. He started going around and he set out a state of, I guess, an emergency, this state where you could arrest these people, these gang members, and it's just like a blitzkrieg of getting every gang member as possible. And they had certain criteria, but when I saw some other videos, I don't want to judge, but they got the whole, they look like a gang member. So, all of this falls 70%. El Salvador sees lowest murder rate in 30 years amid crackdowns on gangs. Even here, his war on gangs, including the building of 40,000 capacity, high security prison, and the arrest of over 70,000 gang members. Members of the gangs has helped push down the crime rate, but human rights groups have condemned his policies, claiming that many of those arrested were innocent and not gang members. And to this, he heard, right? People brought this up. Not all of those are innocent, or not all of those are gang members. And he said in a press conference, he's like, "Are you kidding me? This is baffling because if I look in the UK or America, do they have a 0% arrest rate? Do they have a 0%? No, this is why we have a justice system. Do they have a 0% rate where everyone they arrest is 100% guilty? No, there's a justice system. Actually, there's all kinds of arrests that are made that are wrongfully done. And so he's like, this is a ridiculous claim, of course. But does that mean we stop arresting gang members? No. And there's just been this blitzkrieg. And there's this crazy turnaround of this country. And while he's garnering a ton of backlash outside of El Salvador, in El Salvador, his approval ratings are 90%. 90% is this man. When has a country 90% agreed on something, on a man and how he did this? Now, this is, I've seen other videos and they were like, he, and you can watch for yourself, like these members of these gangs, the family members, they're like, they're innocent. I'm going to prove it, blah, blah, blah. I can't even find them, blah, blah, blah. In the country, 90%, they just reelected him to a second term. Outside of the country, everyone's like human rights, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, he's a dictator, blah, blah, blah. But even outside the country, Bukele's neighbors, look at this. Bukele's authoritarianism in El Salvador may prove contagious. So they use this word authoritarianism as a, it's a buzzword. But what's happening is, and that's probably someone not from El Salvador, El Salvador writing here. But Ecuador is copying the Bukele model. Ecuador is actually copying the prisons that he did to the T. Igualmente is what they were saying in the streets. Honduras copies El Salvador's playbook in anti-gang crackdown. Dude, El Salvador was the murderous capital of the world, but there's second and third ones in Latin America too, and they're like, yo, that worked. We saw the last 3 years, and on top of all of it, he's a Bitcoin maxi. So all that to be said, Tucker Carlson shot this video, this interview with this man, and I think there's a lot to learn from him, especially on how he did it, his mindset, what led him to cause all of this, and his side of the story. I think it's worth a reaction.
In the case of El Salvador, we will do.
Oh, dude, I listened to things like really fast. Here we go.
We're literally the murder capital of the world.
Yes.
And we turned it into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. We're safer than any other country in the Western Hemisphere, which is, it was. If I would have said that 5 years ago, they would say that I was crazy, right?
Yes.
Because this was literally the most dangerous country in the whole world.
Your capital is now safer than our capital in Washington.
Yes.
A lot safer.
And the country is safer than the United States as a whole.
Yes.
The U.S. murder rate is around 6. murders per 100,000 inhabitants, and our murder rate is 2. So we're safer than Canada, safer than Chile, safer than Uruguay.
That's that guy right there. United States is 6. We're at 2. We're safer than Canada. When you're safer than Canada, boy, you know you're safe. You could fall asleep outside and not have a care in the world. And to go from this radical change, I mean, it is absolutely incredible.
Safer than the U.S., safer than any country in the Western Hemisphere. There are countries in the other hemisphere that are safer than El Salvador, but not in the Western Hemisphere.
So you did that in just a couple of years.
Yes, we did that basically in 3 years.
So what? Just bottom line it for us. What's the formula?
Well, I can tell you the official formula and the real formula.
Okay.
Oh, dude, you know you're bad too when you got an official and you got the real one.
Okay.
So the official formula is that we did a plan. I mean, we did a plan. It's not that. When I say official, I mean it's a lie. It's just the official one. We did a plan that was comprised of phases. So we roll up the first phase, then the next one, then the next one, and then gangs started attacking back. So we had to roll up everything at once, like in a hurry. So and it worked. It worked. In a couple of weeks, the country was transformed because the gangs were not yet arrested, but they were on the run. So we basically in the roll up of phase 6, we basically pacified the country in a couple of weeks.
How do you do that? How do you pacify a country?
Well, the phases included building up of the police forces, the army. We doubled the army. We literally doubled the army to fight crime, to use the army to fight crime. And we equipped them before, like soldiers. We didn't have useful guns or vehicles, drones, basic things that.
You imagine you're a gang member and you can be chased down by a drone, bro. You'd be like, and it's 70,000 arrests, right? 70,000 arrests. That means you had 70. I mean, like the murderers, right? You had the most murderers in the world, and so you have to arrest them all, which is the most that's incarcerated. Makes sense.
That an operation of that magnitude will need. So. Yeah, we roll up the phases and then we went after them.
Okay, so that's the official. That's the official.
Yes, that's the official.
What's the real?
Hold on. So before he says like, it's just amazing like to see a plan all come together. 6 phases. Okay, the response is visceral, so we attack back. Yeah, I think that's when you're dealing with something like the murder capital of the world, the most murderous country in the world, you have to take force. You have to. It's like this is domestic terror, and domestic terrorism by these gangs. You got to clean them out. And so the whole world can watch and make their judgments and make their calls. But once you know that you know, and then you see the reaction and the turnaround of the country. And you see a 90% approval rating in a real election, bro. All the proof is in the pudding. So y'all can save all your judgments, in my opinion.
Miracle.
It's a miracle.
Yeah, it's a miracle.
I love that. What do you mean?
Yeah, it's a miracle.
He said it's a miracle. He said that the real reason I had a plan, and that plan worked, and it was good, and it was official. But the real reason was it was a miracle. A miracle. Amazing. Let's hear him dissect this.
When gangs started attacking us back, basically, they killed 87 people in 3 days, which for a country of 6 million people, it's crazy. Would be the equivalent 60 times. Would be the equivalent of having 5,000 deaths in 3 days. 5,000 murders in the U.S. in 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were in a meeting, and when it started, not when it ended, but when it started, we were in a meeting at my office, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., just watching, what was happening and trying to figure out what to do. Because the problem with the gangs is that they don't only attack their objectives. When they want to create terror, they can attack anyone. So they can actually kill their grandma.
Yes.
And it's your victim.
Yes.
Because they don't care about their grandma. You care about their grandma, so it's your victim. If they kill their grandma, you have one death, and they have, they achieved the terror that they want to create. So they can kill anybody. A woman walking by, a guy working in the street, a taxi driver. They can kill anybody.
That's crazy. That's crazy that they, for on one level, they could kill any random person to create terror. Their whole goal is to create terror. But on the second level, the gang member will kill their own grandmother. And he's not pulling that example out of the sky either. Like, that's not a hypothetical example. That is a real example of a real thing. Jeez.
And if the state goes after them, the state has no intention of killing or harming anybody but the gang members. So you have 70,000 objectives, which were the 70,000 gang members, but they have 6 million possible targets. So it was almost an impossible task.
It's a guerrilla war, really.
Yes, but it was an impossible task because you have to go after them. They were intertwined with the population. They were everywhere, and they were killing randomly. So how do you stop them? So we tried to figure out what to do, and I basically said, well, we're looking into an impossible mission here. So we pray, and we.
You prayed in the meeting?
Yes, of course, several times, yeah.
You prayed. He prayed in the meeting. 4 a.m. Prayed several times with his cabinet. This man, president of a country that is the most murdered country in the world, and he turns to God in prayer, and and then he sees a miracle happen. He's trying to find a needle in a haystack. 70,000 gang members in a country of 6 million, and they're all intertwined, and they're causing senseless crimes and murders and random. It's completely an impossible mission, and he prayed to God, and he answered. Amazing.
Yeah. What did you pray for?
To wisdom, to win the war, to have. I thought at the time that we would have civilian casualties. So we prayed that the civilian casualties will be as low as possible. And we didn't have any civilian casualties.
And was everyone in the meeting comfortable with that?
Yes. They
Look at that smile, dude. He was like, we had no civilian casualties. Got a little smile there, dude. This is the dude, man. This is the dude taking action, doing what would not be popular on the world stage, doing what he knew he had to get done, passing all the checks and stuff like that, making the hard calls, turning to God in prayer, and making this thing happen. It wasn't him, it was God. And ultimately, he's on one of the biggest platforms in the world, Tucker Carlson's interview, his show, and he's saying that I prayed to God, me and my cabinet, in my meetings several times, and that's what happened. It's a miracle.
All my security cabinet are believers. They all believe in God. We're a secular country, of course, but we all believe in God. So.
He surrounded himself with believers. This country is led by Christian men. Amazing.
MS-13 is one of the major gangs.
And they are satanic also.
That was my question. So
All right, so they're satanic. Okay, that's probably another video for another time. But I guess this is one of those things where I had this debate with one of my friends, close friends. He's probably watching, I don't know. And the debate was this. Essentially, it's probably wider span, but essentially, what is better for the flourishing of a country? If it's better in the flourishing of a country to establish Christian laws to dictate Christian actions and their outcomes? Or is it better to establish Christian men who are Christian through and through, and then they carry out the governing of the country? Now, okay, if he's watching, we had a wider conversation, but if I could put the binary to it for us on YouTube here, what would be better? I think in this case, it would be better to do what he just did. He's a Christian man, as far as I can tell, with Christian men around him as leadership as a cabinet, and they're carrying out what would need to be done. And it's one of those things where, like, how do you govern a country? What's the best way to govern a country is really what the real question is. What is the best way to govern a country? What would be the best way to govern a country? And if you look at the United States, there were Christian men who established, I would believe, maybe not Christian laws, but laws that were the underpinning was Christianity, was faith in God, right? Inalienable rights, natural law, you know, all men are created equal. These are thoroughly Christian beliefs. Are those laws? But more just the reflections of a changed heart by Christ, right? And those hearts reflect those laws. So in my estimation, yeah, I think we could establish these laws, but if you establish, like, you wouldn't be, I don't think you would have this, you wouldn't have this turnaround in El Salvador if you established Christian laws. I don't think you'd have that. I don't think you'd be like, okay, you know, the Christian laws do not murder. Okay. like there goes that. That was probably already a law over there. But you saw a Christian man who did the absolute just impossible in the changing of this whole country, and it just warms my heart. It's amazing to see what happened. I'm so glad. But there is a shadow side of it. I'm muting it because they're talking about MS-13 right now. But the shadow side of it, I guess I have two questions. One, what is the best way to govern a country? To establish Christian laws or to establish Christian men? Okay? Because men could be corrupted by power. So and certainly we had both, and now we are in the state of the United States where it's at now. So establishing Christian laws or establishing Christian men? That's the first question. The second question is, do you agree with his excessive force? Was this excessive force? Was this necessary? Are we on the outside in our safe, comfy, you know, rooms with AC at the internet, watching him make these calls and then passing judgment? Or are you in El Salvador checking this out and you're like, yeah, I love Bukele, dude, I love this guy. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next video.